What's up, Tailgaters? You're in the booth with Tailgate Nate today, and the roads predict all 136 FBS level college football teams this summer is now taking its next stop. Back in the Mid-American Conference, we are in DeKalb, Illinois, right around the Chicago area, because we are going to be talking about Northern Illinois and the Huskies here in 2025. How do they build after pulling off the biggest upset in school history just a season ago? My name is Nate Pope, otherwise known as Tailgate Nate. Thank you all so much for clicking on the video and for helping to support the channel. If you would like to support the channel even further, please do what it says below me. Hit that subscribe button, and while you're at it, you might as well ring the bell. Turning on notifications will ensure that you don't miss a thing during prediction season, and especially not one for your favorite team. I am a sports media graduate delving into the professional world of the industry. If you would like to see all the cool stuff I get to do while still being up to date on what goes on this very YouTube channel, then please give me a follow on Twitter, Instagram. It's at TailgateNate29, and feel free, even email me, tailgatenate29@gmail.com. Thank you all so much for supporting and interacting with me and the channel in whatever way you may be doing so. And now, let us dive on in to talk about Thomas Hammock and these Northern Illinois Huskies, who just pulled off the biggest upset in school history a season ago, going on the road in week 2, defeating, I believe, then a top 5 Notre Dame team that obviously went on to go play for a national championship after losing to, I should say, falling short, losing to Ohio State. But this Northern Illinois team overall was not the most impressive season. 7-5, 4-4 in conference, and you could have been better. But after the historic upset and a ton of momentum, what can they do to replace all the talent that they lost? And can they find themselves back competing for a MAC championship? We're going to answer those questions in this video, but in order to do that, you got to know, well, how I'm going to. We're going to take a look at the roster, in which case the offense here to the left, defense here to the right. End of the video, we are going to take a deep dive into the Husky football schedule. I'll give it a game-by-game preview and prediction, and this video overall is here to tell all of you what I think about the Huskies here in 2025. Before we do start, right down below me are returning production numbers. They are according to ESPN, and they factor in portal additions up to a certain percentage. What's more is, even down below that, recruiting and transfer portal ranks for the class of 2025 are according to 24/7 Sports. Now, with all that said and done and out of the way, I give you your offensive coordinator, Quinn Sanders, and let's start talking about this Husky offense. This very much so is a Northern Illinois team that the returning production tells you the story there. They are going to have to replace quite a bit of talent on this team from a season ago. And the primary quarterback in Ethan Hampton is one of those players that is gone. He portals out. He is now going over to play for the Illinois Fighting Illini. What he did last year, 1,600 yards on the dot, 12 touchdowns and 6 interceptions. So again, not anything super impressive, but their backup last year, that's probably going to end up being their starting man this year, and Josh Holst is back with hopes of bettering his passing ability. Now, what he did on the ground last year, 230 yards and a touchdown, 4.7 yards per carry. That is with sack yardage, which he honestly did not take much of, only 11 yards taken off of that total for sack yardage. So that's a guy that can get out, run the ball. We've seen that before, but his passing needs a whole ton of work. He threw 111 passes, and I don't normally provide that context, but it's important here. 593 yards on 58.6% completion, just a few ticks higher than what Hampton was able to do in a larger sample size, and only 2 touchdowns, 2 picks in 111 passes. That ratio has got to get a whole lot better, and it's why I say he needs to better the passing ability. What's more is, I know even Hampton wasn't that great last year in overall efficiency, meaning he wasn't that great in yards per completion and even yards per attempt. Yards per attempt for Holst last year were even worse than Hampton. Hampton was at 6.5 yards per pass attempt. Holst was at 5.3. You need to improve that passing margin. And look, there are guys that are going to compete with him in this quarterback room. You do have a couple transfers coming in here. Most notably, though, is Jackson. Actually, I think only one transfer enters. Jackson Proctor, who's a transfer from Dartmouth, could push for the starting job. I would lean towards Josh Holst, even out of some of the other returners that are in this room, just because of the experience that he played last year. And I do think we're going to see some improvement. How much, though, is the big question that I think every Husky fan is going to want answered. Your top 2 rushers are gone. This is going to be a pretty big theme on the offense this season. Top 2 rushers from last season were as follows: Gavin Williams, 749 yards and 4 touchdowns a season ago. You're also going to be losing Ontario Brown, who also had 4 touchdowns, 567 yards, 5.4 yards per carry for Williams, 4.9 for Brown. However, you do get another guy that, well, had 4 touchdowns for you last year, in a guy by the name of Telly Johnson Jr., who is going to be coming back, 480 yards, 4 touchdowns, 4.7 yards per carry. I already told you Holst was the 4th leading rusher on this team, so the 5th leading rusher was a guy by the name of Jalen Poe. You're probably going to see Poe and Johnson, for lack of better terminology and really lack of better anything, probably split carries this season, as Jalen Poe could be the feature running back at points throughout this offense, but 190 yards and 3 touchdowns on 5.3 carries for him. Even though you do lose some good pieces out of this running back room, I think the talent's still very much there for the Husky running back stable. Again, receiver room. Oh, and by the way, this running back room, very, very young. I do not believe they have anybody over a junior here in this room. And yeah, it's going to be a redshirt sophomore for Jalen Poe, a true sophomore for Telly Johnson, and they have 2 redshirt freshmen sitting behind in the wings as well. As far as your receiver room goes, it also is overall going to get younger because a lot of your top pieces from last year are also gone. Trayvon Rudolph has transferred over to Toledo, 392 yards and a touchdown. Yes, that was the leading receiver. There wasn't one guy. There were about 5 or 6 guys that you could reliably throw the football to. Cam Thompson has transferred over to Mississippi State. Andrew McElroy is gone off the program. And that's your 1, 2, and 4. I should say your 1st, 2nd, and 4th leading receivers from a year ago. And if you skip down over here to the 4th bullet point, then your lead tight end Grayson Barnes, who was 3rd in receiving for you a year ago, 388 yards, and actually led the team with 4 receiving touchdowns a season ago. You're going to see him leave this unit, this pass catching unit overall as well. So who does come back? Well, your most experienced returning piece is your 5th leading receiver from a season ago. 238 yards and 3 touchdowns from Dane Partridge, and he is the only returner that accumulated more than 100 yards receiving last year, because the other 2 guys that did, Brown and Williams, obviously are gone, being your 2 lead backs. So what does that mean for the rest of this wide receiver room? Well, inherently so, guys are going to need to take a step up. They're going to be playing some bigger roles, such as guys like LaDon Bryant, who's a redshirt freshman, even some more experienced pieces like Taylor Rickey and Kenji Lewis. Or I should say Kenji Lewis, the more experienced piece. Taylor Rickey, again, is a much younger piece, a redshirt freshman, much like LaDon Bryant. And you do have some transfers coming in here as well. Gary Givens is coming in. I believe his name is listed there. Yep, he's projected first-string minutes, a transfer over from Valparaiso. And then De'Ari Rogers is coming in from Lenore Rhine as, or I should say from the Division II ranks. Tight end room, Jake Applegate is going to be the guy that ends up taking over here. And I actually like him in the tight end room. He is a more experienced piece, even though not that much playing time last year over Grayson Barnes. I think Applegate is a nice talent. The offensive line, though, you're going to need a lot of spots to fill in. 5 senior starters gone, exiting this room. So the room, much like most of this offense, is getting younger this season, but it adds a senior transfer in Aiden Tweedy that's going to help mold some of the younger pieces around him into an offensive line that last season was pretty solid, only gave up 19 sacks and allowed this rushing game to get 4.7 yards per carry. With everybody gone, that's going to be a pretty tall ask. So this offense, I think it got around 385 yards per game last year. I would not be surprised if that falls off, just based off of how much that they did lose and how young this team is going to be. Now, young does not mean untalented. That's not what that means. I think Josh Holst at his peak can be a pretty solid quarterback. I don't know if he'll necessarily be anything spectacular, but I think he'll be solid. I actually do like the talent you have in the running back room, albeit young. I think it's good. Wide receiver room, we'll see what pieces step up. The offensive line is a little concerning to me, but again, I think Aiden Tweedy, a nice center transfer you brought in. A lot of questions on the offense, a lot of things that I think you're just going to have to wait and see with this Husky program. Overall, though, your defensive coordinator, Rob Harley, the defense was immaculate last year. Under 300 yards per game allowed, and if the defense can keep up what they did last year, I think it's going to keep them in pretty much every game this season. Now, it doesn't say pretty much over there, but I mean pretty much any game. There might be one or two that get away from this Husky program, especially at the beginning of the year. We'll talk about those when we get there. But as far as the talent that is gone, again, you see the returning production numbers down here, guys. They lose some major talent in every single facet of this defense. And when you start out with this defensive front, you lose some of your big boy sack leaders. Skylar Gill Howard, who had 4.5 sacks last year, is now with the Texas Tech Red Raiders in a loaded transfer portal class. You do lose your overall sack leader in Devontae O'Malley, who has now joined the Titans over in the NFL. You also are going to be losing a pretty good linebacker for you, but I say his name because of the sack production he had last season. Only 9 tackles, but 5 of those were sacks, and he's transferring over to Mississippi State, so you're going to lose him there as well. You do have some more productive pieces coming back, and more productive does not mean that they were necessarily more productive. It just means you are going to have more productive pieces coming back, such as Roy Williams, a guy that was also high up on the sack leaderboard last year. In fact, was second on the team with 6.5 sacks, 38 tackles, was a top 10 tackler. You do get some other nice pieces that are going to be filling in around him, such as another edge rusher in Jelani Williams that's going to flank him. I like that pairing off the defensive edge. And then you get some experienced transfers coming in defensively. Again, Williams, I should say the two Williams, Jelani and Roy on the outsides. Don't know if there's any relation between the two, by the way, are going to be flanked, or I should say, are going to be matched in the interior with a younger guy in Mark Hensley and Deshaun Dixon, who is a transfer coming over from a school in Albany. And you also get some other depth transfers coming in as experience as well, as again, some good experience returners. You move on to the linebacker room on top of the guy that I already mentioned, who had some great sack production for you. Your top two linebackers and overall top 2 tacklers are gone. That's Jaden Dolphin and Christian Furman. I know Furman entered the transfer portal, and to my knowledge has not announced whether he's found a new home or returning or anything of such. Jaden Dolphin is for sure gone. So I think there is the possibility that Furman can be back. Someone, Husky fan, let me know down in the comment section below, but I'm going to act like he's not here. And so what do you have without those two guys? Well, your unit is going to return Quinn Erweiler, who did have some good production as a linebacker for you last year, and again will be another experienced piece on this defense, and he's going to get paired with a transfer in Danny Cronin, not Donnie. The A and the O are on opposite sides of the keyboard. That is me misreading the name, and I apologize for that profusely. So Danny Cronin is a transfer that's coming in, another experienced portal piece coming over again from Dartmouth, and pair him, I should say pair those two, with some other experienced pieces that will return deep in this linebacking unit. As far as your secondary goes, again, more good production does leave. Your top 4 tackling defensive backs are all going to see an exit from this program. One of them had 3 interceptions last year. A guy by the name of Nate Valcarcel, who is now with the NFL's Los Angeles Rams, because pretty good player here for this team, and again, more talent does leave. You do still have some experience present with Jacob Finley and Ty Miles, among some other names, such as guys like Muhammad Jamed that are going to be coming back, as well as some good depth pieces, such as Cyrus McGarrell, and wouldn't you know it, more transfers enter this room as well. Again, bringing a ton of experience. Dante Harrison is going to be coming in from a school named Shepherd. You're going to have Jasper Beeler coming in from Saginaw Valley State. Miles Thompson's another transfer, but he's coming over from a Power 4 school in Texas Tech. A lot of D2 and FCS transfers coming into this Northern Illinois team. As far as the portal goes, it does overhaul another room, and that is your special teams unit. New punter, new kicker, both come out of the portal, and overall, well, that's your special teams report, but overall, when you take a look at this team top to bottom, overall, offensively, I have a lot of questions based off of the youngness that you see here. On the defense, I have a lot of questions based off of, okay, is this guy going to fit in, or are these transfers going to live up to the FCS level? I think you're going to see some good, some bad, and potentially some ugly with Northern Illinois this season. Well, when we take a look at the schedule that sits right over here, there definitely is potential for Northern Illinois to have some struggle this season. We will go ahead and take a look at the schedule here in just a little bit. But before we do that, we got to look right below me because we got some odds courtesy of FanDuel. And again, no, not me telling you to go place your money. You do what you want with the hard, or I should say, with the money that you so earned throughout your time. I messed that up brutally, but basically you do what you want with your money. I'm not a gambling expert. It just does provide some good context to how good the odds makers think Northern Illinois is going to be this year. The longest odds you can get to get into the college football playoff. In order for that, yes, they will make the college football playoff, is plus 10,000. Northern Illinois is pretty close to that. And again, much like I've talked about, there are a good amount of questions on this team on both sides of the ball. And as far as that number to go win the MAC conference, plus 1,200, I believe sits them at 5th or 6th. So they are still in the top half, projected to still be one of the MAC's better sides at 6.5 is that over under win total. So even odds makers are looking at this team and saying, yeah, there could be some not so bright moments, but overall the talent here is strong. And if I haven't said that outright yet, well, then there you go. I exactly echo those thoughts. Holy Cross is going to be a good win for you to start off this season, even though that has been a good program in the FCS over the past couple of seasons. Obviously, their head coach a couple years ago, Bob Chesney, took the James Madison job, but I do think Northern Illinois going to be able to get that one done at home. Now, you do not have a big marquee power opponent like Notre Dame on the schedule, but you do have 2 Power 4 games, both of them on the road, and you get a bye week in between the two. Do I see another week 2 upset for the Huskies this year? Unfortunately, I do not. And I know that Maryland and Mississippi State, as per their respective conferences, are probably not going to end up being that great of teams. But I do like a lot of the talent that Maryland still does possess, especially they got 2 guys vying for that starting quarterback job. But if it's the true freshman Malik Washington, I think Maryland's got some potential to, barring the way he turns out, to really surprise some people this year. And I think they made out well in the transfer portal, especially in the wide receiver room with Caleb Webb and Jaleel Farouk entering that program. Some good experience is going to return on defense, especially in that Terrapin secondary. And overall, even though I think they might struggle in the Big Ten Conference this year, I still think they're going to get the job done here against the Northern Illinois Huskies as they try to answer a lot of their questions that they have. And I think talent on Maryland, especially that quarterback Malik Washington, if he plays, will oust Northern Illinois and prevent them from another week 2 upset. Again, as I told you, get your first bye week. And even though I think Mississippi State is a program that is going to take a lot to try to build in the right direction under Jeff Lebby, I still think that they're going to end up winning this game. And Mississippi State has the added firepower of, you heard me say, a couple of Northern Illinois transfers that are going to be over there. So they're going to look to get in and beat their former team if they get the opportunity to play, which a couple of them absolutely definitely could. But when I take a look here at this Mississippi State team, again, I see a team, as you compare them to the SEC, that I think is really going to struggle. However, Blake Shapen coming back at quarterback, Devon Booth at running back, those are 2 really experienced pieces with some real nice talent transferring into the defensive front. Again, do I think it's a struggle in the SEC for them? Yes. Do I think they got some good talent and enough to beat Northern Illinois? Sure I do. That's a win for the Mississippi State Bulldogs. Now, the San Diego State game. At home, I do think you're going to end up winning this one. San Diego State, if it were any other year, I would say, it's probably going to be a really close and competitive game, and I could go either way with this one. But I am fairly confident that Northern Illinois is going to get this one done. Again, despite how young the offense is, I like them to overcome the San Diego State defense that ever since Brady Hoke announced retirement and Sean Lewis has come in, has just not been the same defense, and even the offense has not been what a lot of Aztec faithful thought it was going to be. There were some pretty high expectations for Sean Lewis coming in to this program, and he just has not necessarily lived up to the billing. 3-9 last year. I think that record is overall going to get better for the Aztecs this season, and a lot of transfers come in, so we'll see what fits, we'll see what doesn't, but overall there is still a lot of building and a lot of work for Sean Lewis to do over there in San Diego. Now you get into the MAC conference slate, and first game out of the gate here, I think this game is going to tell you a lot about what Northern Illinois is going to be this year. Week 6, their first game in MACtion, they play Miami, Ohio. And again, like I told you, I think that this is going to be a very, very telling game. Why? Well, I know Miami does lose a ton of talent, including some really generational pieces to that program, especially Gabbard at the quarterback quarterback position to really good linebackers in Matt Salopek and Ty Wise, among players just overall across the board. In saying that, Miami, Ohio, I still think is going to be one of the more talented teams in the Mid-American Conference, getting DeQuan Finn. I like Kenny Tracy at running back. Think they did well in the portal in the wide receiver room. And defensively, still got a ton of good pieces and a ton of experience back. And even the guys that are going to take a step up, play a bigger role this year, are looking really, really good. So I think Miami, Ohio is going to win this game. I think Northern Illinois can absolutely pull it off. And if they win that game, I think you're going to see Northern Illinois have a really successful season in the MAC. If they lose it, again, like I told you before in this video, you're going to see some ups, you're going to see some downs, and you could potentially see some ugly. And while I'm not necessarily pushing for this next game to be one of those ugly points, I definitely do think that you fall short of this one here on the road against Eastern Michigan. Watch out for these directional Michigan teams this year, man. They are going to be quite the dangerous bunch, especially Eastern Michigan, who brings back a lot of experience. Overall, might be the most experienced team in the Mid-American Conference this season, and they get more experience through the transfer portal, both in the linebacker and in the secondary unit, as well as the defensive front, that at very least is going to play depth role. But offensively, new quarterback this year is going to be a grad transfer in Noah Kim. Now, you do have Cameron Edge coming in, but I think Noah Kim going to end up getting that starting spot. Dante McMillan at running back is a graduate. Lots of graduate wide receiver pieces. Those guys have been around the block. In Eastern Michigan, watch out for him. I think Chris Creighton's a good head coach, and I expect a good bounce back season out of this Eagles team. What's more, you go on the road and play Ohio. That's going to end up being another loss for you. So already you take a look. This is a team that just sits one loss away from having to win out, and you would sacrifice getting in to bowl season. Let me tell you about this Ohio team for a little bit. Because again, I think this Ohio team still going to be one of the more talented ones the Mid-American Conference sees. Parker Navarro is coming back at quarterback. You got C.A. Bangura, who tried out the Power 4 experiment. Didn't really work for him, so he's going to come back here and play some football for the Ohio Bobcats again, and he was really, really good. Wide receiver room I like, defense I like. Bam. Overall, a great shot for the Bobcats to defend their MAC Conference Championship, even after all that they lost, especially on the defensive end. However, things are going to get better for Ball State here. Before you dive on into Maction play, these weekday games, you are going to be able to get this win against Ball State. I just can't see you losing this game. I think Ball State lost too much, especially the quarterback Kane Samanza. That was pretty good for him a season ago. I just cannot see this Northern Illinois team losing their fourth in a row to this Ball State program. And if they do, then there is going to be trouble, because the very next game that you play after your bye week, you get into Maction, you have to go on the road and play Toledo in a team that I think is probably going to be the best team in the Mid-American Conference this season. Tucker Gleason is going to return at quarterback, and even with some losses, has still got some great skill position players, including a good wide receiver in Junior Vandeross. The defense might be one of the better ones in the Mid-American Conference this year as well, and I think they have the best head coach in the MAC in Jason Candle. It was a really disappointing season for the Rockets last year, and I think they, pun absolutely intended, rocket back up the standings and get towards the top of the MAC. They're going to be one of the conference's better sides, and all of a sudden, you're looking at NIU and you're thinking, uh-oh, is this team going to miss a bowl game? Well, you're going to have to wonder that for an extra week, because you go on the road and play UMass. I don't think this is a Minutemen team that is going to challenge you that much, and even when you look ahead at that Friday game against Kent State, I mean, just a program in absolute shambles right now. I really don't know the first step. If I were to get the head coaching job of Kent State tomorrow, I don't really know what the first step would be. That program is such a mess. There's a ton going on, and there's a ton that has to be rebuilt. You got to set a culture. You have to build a roster. Kent State really is a big old mess, and is probably going to sit towards the bottom of the MAC yet again this season. So I already told you I think they're going to win that one, which means their bowl game season hopes, in my opinion, are going to holster on this Western Michigan game. Now, I've told you pretty much in every video where one of these directional Michigan schools is present to watch out for them. And Western Michigan is absolutely no different. After a 6-6 season last year, they are looking to get back into a bowl game this season with Brock Lowry going to come back and play quarterback. Jalen Buckley is probably going to be one of the better running backs in the Mid-American Conference this year. I think they did pretty well in the transfer portal, especially getting some really nice experience pieces such as Christian Leary and others. Guys, they're going to end up playing some starting minutes for you. You take a look at the defensive side, a lot of good experience pieces come back along with some really talented transfers, and it's Maction. I think Northern Illinois loses this game, and I already told you they're going to beat Kent State, so I'll flash it up. But again, I think their season overall, depending on whether they want to get into a bowl game or not, is probably going to hinge on that Western Michigan game. It could hinge on the Eastern Michigan game. And I told you that first game against Miami, Ohio, they win it. I think they're in for a good season. They lose it, to be in some trouble. Well, I have them losing it, and unfortunately for Thomas Hammock and company, I just see this team disappointing a little bit this season. I think the defense are going to have their moments where they're going to keep this team in it, but the offense just cannot produce, especially from a passing game standpoint. I would love nothing more for this Husky team to prove me wrong. I got some family that's tied close to the university, and I would like to see this team do a lot better than I'm predicting. However, overall, I just think with the combination of the younger offensive pieces as well as the transfers you need to fit in on both sides of the ball, I think you're going to see a bit of a down year for this Husky program. Give them back in 2026. They should be able to rise up the ranks again in the MAC, but it's a struggle and overall probably a disappointment compared to expectations here in 2025. Let me know what you guys think about the Huskies though in the comment section below. And as always, remember to play hard but tailgate harder. See y'all in the next video. Goodbye.